It's such a pleasure to be here with you today, my dear colleagues. I'm Jennifer Contreras, and I'm here with Tamara Aguilar and Gilio Seda. We're part of the Family Services team. Today, we'll be talking about a very sensitive topic that's impacting many people, including families within the church. Today, we'd like to talk about the conflicts and challenges that arise in relationships. We'll explore some tools we can apply in our own lives to strengthen marital bonds. And we'll also touch on a more sensitive topic, divorce. I'd like to share a 2023 study published in a journal on family and couples psychology, which discusses the main reasons why couples decide to divorce. According to the study, 75% of cases are due to a lack of commitment, 59.7% infidelity, and 56.9% is due to constant arguments and tension between partners, along with other issues. But what caught my attention was that it's not just these factors affecting families. The article also mentioned other reasons, such as financial problems. Getting married at a young age really stood out to me. And unfortunately, addictions, whether from one partner or both, are also having an impact. And mistreatment, right? Abuse. This whole issue of domestic abuse is seriously affecting families. And last but not least, the article also mentioned the lack of support. Coming from our family of origin, it really caught my attention how that can also negatively affect family relationships. What do you think about these stats?
You know, I'm actually a big fan of statistics. They honestly reflect the reality a lot of households are facing and going through. And it's a very, very real thing. They're actually suffering, right? It's not just something people talk about. They're living it firsthand. It's really heartbreaking when we see situations like this, right? And I really appreciate what the prophets have said in anticipation of these challenges. The family. A proclamation to the world teaches us that the family is ordained of God and that marriage is essential to his eternal plan. But it also reminds us that all kids, children, should be raised by a mom and dad, parents who genuinely honor their marriage vows and remain faithful to one another. That's why, and I'm pretty sure it's President Henry B. Eyring, who constantly reminds us that before making the decision to divorce, we should always strive to seek out and make use of every resource we can, really make the most of the tools available to strengthen our marriages, right? To tackle those challenges early on. And, well, if there are relationships that have been damaged within the family, so that's where we could, kind of help ourselves with the available resources we have, especially those the church offers. Because the church offers support in lots of areas, and there are talks on these subjects. And on top of that, as you well know, on our Family Services webpage, there's a brand new and very helpful feature, a complete guide with all the resources. It's all put together to make them accessible and easier to access. Just one click, and the guide gives you access to everything. It includes all the available reading materials you might need and can easily share, plus even a questionnaire. The questionnaire helps us pick up on early signs that something might be off in a marriage.
I love it. And you know what? Another really important thing is the self-reliance workshops. Right now, we have workshops on how to strengthen marriage and build stronger families. And something I really love when I'm training leaders is that we invite everyone to participate, because these workshops aren't just for marriages that are facing challenges or going through a rough patch. There's something that could benefit all marriages. And if things are already going well, they can help make them even better, because the resources are there to help us keep learning and growing.
That's right. But please, let's remember that all of this is, in a way, preventive, because there are resources to turn to. If professional help is ever needed in a family, we also have the option of family and couples therapy. That's when couples can talk to the bishop and ask for help to get therapy from a professional, just like it should be.
The bishop is also the one who helps bring these self-reliance workshops you mentioned. Through his leadership or through the stake president's direction, these workshops can be held in any stake or unit if needed. And they're really great and inspiring. I recently met a missionary couple who shared something really touching with me. They said, "Sister, we honestly believe this workshop saved our marriage."
Wow.
After going through that experience, they started serving together as missionaries. And now they even serve side by side in the temple. Honestly, it's such a powerful tool for helping couples grow stronger together.
Serving together is definitely special.
It's true. Heavenly Father knows exactly what we need in these latter days. Satan is stepping up his attacks on families. That's why we've been given so many inspired resources to strengthen us. I was also thinking that, well, divorce isn't meant to be our first option, right? Instead, our leaders actually encourage us to try everything and to work things out, to seek help, and use the resources available. But our leaders have also made it very clear that no one should ever tolerate abuse or mistreatment. So yeah, it's a delicate topic, right? Sadly, in some homes, abuse is happening, mistreatment is real, and addiction is also part of the picture. And maybe as a couple, we've already reached out and tried some resources, and maybe things still aren't working out. It could be that even though it's a really difficult decision, I've come to realize that for the well-being of my family, my children, and for my own emotional and physical safety, the healthiest choice might be to end the marriage. But I think it's also important that we talk about that, right? Because when we're going through challenges like those and seriously considering that option, because we've decided I'm going to end this relationship, well, there are a lot of mental and emotional things happening to me. I'd like us to take a moment to talk about what goes on emotionally when someone is facing these kinds of challenges.
I love that people can understand this because a lot of times we start feeling guilt, right? And we don't even know where it's coming from or why. Sometimes there's just this general discomfort and we don't really understand what's going on. It can even get to a point where we might start feeling different. And now and then, those feelings can lead to severe symptoms of depression and anxiety. But where do these feelings come from, right? Well, it has a lot to do with neurotransmitters. These are chemicals our brain releases that help us feel good. You've probably heard of some of them, like dopamine, serotonin, and oxytocin, which are naturally produced in our bodies, right? But during those tough times, the levels of these neurotransmitters start to drop because of the stress and difficulty we're going through. And that decrease can cause those feelings of discomfort. On top of that, there's the weight of everything else, the stress, the pressure we feel from all directions and on every level. In situations like those, these kinds of circumstances cause our cortisol levels to rise, which is the hormone linked to stress. And when that happens, we start to feel a deeper, more intense kind of stress. So yeah, we really start to feel awful physically and emotionally. That's what's going on in our bodies during these moments. And when we're facing a difficult situation, especially when it involves our personal relationships, it hits even harder.
I also think, Jenny, that when we're in a position where we have to make that decision, there are so many factors that come into play, right? Questions like, will I be able to handle it? Can I really do this? Sometimes we even think, what if I can't make it through?
That's right. And then we start to doubt ourselves. We begin to discredit our own worth. We worry about what others will think. I'm already an adult. Am I really going to start over? Will I ever find someone again? What am I going to do with my children? And on top of that, all the stress we talked about earlier gets amplified by financial concerns, social pressure, everything. So yes, this is real and it weighs heavily.
Yes, and it is a reality. It happens. That's why we also need to talk about it. We often encourage everyone to nurture and protect their marriages so that they don't get to this point. But it's also important to, understand the situation we're going through. If I'm already in the process of divorce and all that's left is to sign the papers, there are still many changes ahead, and I need to be prepared. We've talked about what happens emotionally and mentally when we're facing that experience and about how we feel as adults. But what about the little ones? Understanding even a bit of their emotional world helps us support them with more empathy.
That's right. And as you may know, family life experts know and often point out that when a marriage ends, unfortunately, it's usually the kids who are most deeply and directly affected, especially when it comes to their emotional well-being, because they are often afraid of being abandoned, right? Of losing the love of either their mom or dad. And something I always noticed, in some cases, there's what researchers call the family reunification fantasy. It means that some children hold on to the hope that their parents will get back together. Of course, this doesn't happen with every child, and that's important to clarify, but it does happen. I've seen how kids really wish their family would be together again. Sometimes they even try to sabotage their dad's girlfriends or their mom's boyfriends because they want their parents back together. There was even a case of a man who was 42 years old. He never got married. I mean, it affected him that much. He just never settled down. And he didn't really want to start a family because he feared his marriage wouldn't work. The kind of deep, common fear many people share. He told me his parents separated when he was just 3 years old, and ever since, he's held onto the hope, or even the fantasy, that his mom and dad would get back together someday. In therapy, he shared, "They're grown-ups now, and I don't want to see them separated." So you see how this affects children when they're young, right? And sometimes they carry those feelings all the way into adulthood, like in the example I just shared. And with teenagers and children, I've noticed that both often become socially withdrawn, show increased aggression, and experience a drop in school performance. You can see the decline, especially in their academics. And on top of that, we also start to notice that they can even battle depression, you know? Some might deal with anxiety, emotional breakdowns, or even panic attacks. I remember one case where a mother said, "My son just walks out of the house without saying a single word. He doesn't respond to messages." The mother becomes increasingly desperate, worried sick, and even calls for help to find him. Hours pass, full of anxiety and fear. Then, the young man walks in, calm, like nothing ever happened. But of course, it's part of what he's going through. He's hurting deeply too, especially after seeing his dad leave the house, right? And while the mother suffers deeply, the child is also struggling with all of this. He's showing a sign, emotional isolation. That's why he walks out. He's trying to process everything in his own way, quietly and alone. But maybe things could improve significantly if he had the support of caring, professional therapy.
Of course, you know what else I've noticed? That when people really need to feel loved, they start getting intimate way too early and in ways that aren't right for their age. They break the law of chastity and end up suffering a lot, wanting to feel safe, but unfortunately not seeking the best guidance. And this happens with many of our young people. And as parents, we definitely need to stay alert and involved, right? Even when we're going through tough times or dealing with couples' conflicts, there's a personal side as parents that we just can't ignore.
And neglect.
Exactly. Neglecting is such a big mistake. Why? Because if I know my child well, it's really important to have good communication with them. So even though all this is happening in the family, we have to talk, right? We need to listen to our children, understand their point of view, what they're feeling, and what they're thinking. What else do you think we should consider?
Absolutely. And it's so important to remember that even through all the difficulties, we remain parents. That parent-child relationship is fundamental in anyone's life. Divorce may change the family structure, but it doesn't mean we separate from our children. They will always be our children. I really like what you said, Jenny, about listening to them and truly understanding what they're feeling. That connection can make all the difference. But it's also so important to remember that they also need love, right? And I remember when I had my daughter, my parents gave me the best advice possible. They told me, always speak to her with the truth. When they said that, I was going through a tough time. My daughter was just a baby, and we were both hospitalized due to a serious health issue she had, right? And my dad used to tell me, talk to her because she's feeling abandoned, since I had to leave her in the incubator. So for me, that moment was really healing, you know, being able to talk to her, even though she was just a baby. And I think it's healing for everyone, honestly. Talking is important, but so is listening. It's essential for parents and children to go through that process. They can listen to each other. We must be attentive to any behavioral changes. Not everyone will face the same challenges, right? Some may cope better or be more resilient, and maybe if we speak the truth to our children from the beginning, they might already start to process things more clearly and healthily. And be prepared, right, for a moment like this, facing reality when there's a breakup. That's why it's also very important to remember that we should never, never push our children to feel they have to choose between mom and dad, to pick a side, as we often say. Because doing that really disrupts, you know, their emotional stability and sense of security. It affects the way the child sees reality. And truly, while it's important to speak to them with honesty, we also have to be very careful. Not everything about a divorce needs to be shared, right? But obviously, they do need to be informed about the decisions being made, and above all, they need to know that we're thinking about their well-being first.
Thank you. Now I'd like to share 3 emotional tools that we can apply, whether we're currently facing challenges in our marriage and haven't yet decided what to do, or we've already chosen to move forward with a divorce and believe it's the best option. Either way, these 3 tools can be incredibly helpful. The first is to seek support. When we're going through tough times, we shouldn't try to handle everything on our own. We can't do this alone. We have to acknowledge that. We need help, and that's okay. A strong support network can make a huge difference. It could be our parents, close friends, church leaders, people we trust. What does this support allow? It gives us the space to talk, to express what we're feeling. And when we talk, we begin to heal. This also leads me to self-reflection. I think it's important to take some time to really think about what I've done and what I haven't done. Maybe this process helps me become more responsible too, because at the end of the day, a relationship involves 2 people. And if things aren't working or haven't gone well, I need to recognize my part in that I might not be doing well, what I'm lacking, what I need to change. Like the second tool is engaging in enjoyable activities. In this hectic world we live in, I think there comes a moment when we feel like we can't do anything for ourselves anymore. We're either too exhausted and just want to sleep, or we're so focused on our children, which is important, that we forget we also need time for ourselves, right? I was thinking, when was the last time I did something I truly enjoy? I love reading. I enjoy writing poems. And I thought, honestly, I haven't done that in a long time. So I set a small goal for myself. I'm going to start doing more things just for me, things that make me feel happier and more connected to myself. That's what this tool is all about. Dedicating time to myself and doing things I enjoy is truly helpful. And I'd say this too, exercise, eat healthy, it makes a difference. Also, setting aside time as a couple, even when there are conflicts. If we can begin to find small moments to reconnect and improve our communication, it can have a positive impact on the relationship. And now, the third tool is therapy. As you already mentioned, it's so incredibly important not to delay in recognizing when we truly need professional help. If as a couple we're going through challenges and still aren't sure what direction to take with our marriage, professional support can truly make a significant difference. Why? Because in therapy, one of the first things we work on is forgiveness toward the other person and toward myself. Second, we begin to take greater responsibility for our actions. And third, we start making meaningful changes. We adapt, we grow, and we allow something I truly value, gaining tools to help my children. Because if I choose to go to therapy, whether I've decided to divorce or not, I'll also receive guidance on how to support and accompany my children through this process in a healthier way. And that to me is incredibly important. What do you think about that?
I really believe we need it, right? It's so important and truly life-changing. And in that process, we can also include our children. They're not exempt from needing support too. Sometimes a professional can help them identify and validate their emotions, understand what they're feeling and why, and most importantly, give them tools to navigate those emotions in a healthy way. You mentioned those tools and resources, and you're absolutely right. Children and young people need them too. It's so important to equip them so they don't fall into some of the harmful behaviors we talked about earlier, like engaging in early sexual relationships or getting involved in toxic dynamics. And just as importantly, to help prevent addictions as a way to cope.
Yes, you know what else I was thinking? I was thinking about the other side of this, right? Ideally, both the husband and the wife should receive therapy. But what usually happens? The bishop calls and says, only the sister is willing to take therapy, right? The husband doesn't want to. So I think it's important to remember that couples therapy is meant for both people, right? And together they need to go through the necessary changes to achieve significant improvements, heal past traumas, and strengthen their relationship. But that has to happen in a joint committed process. Exactly, together, as we explained. But what can we do when the husband doesn't want to, or the wife doesn't want to, because they think they're not the ones with the problem, right? That's where we begin, by helping them recognize, maybe, to self-awareness, to seek self-help, right? So little by little, they begin to realize that they do need it. And if we want to preserve our family, our marriage, and avoid ending in divorce, that is truly the best path forward.
You know, I've also noticed in these therapeutic processes that Sometimes only the wife wants to attend, or only the husband does. In those cases, I encourage them to start anyway, to make it happen. And as they begin making changes, the one who isn't attending starts to notice the changes, and the person going to therapy naturally becomes an example. Then the husband might realize that his wife isn't as angry anymore, or that there's less yelling, or maybe a bit more understanding, because sometimes that's exactly what's needed to better understand each other. And through these small changes, they will attend together, right? There's a new willingness. And once you feel it after 2 or 3 months, the husband is already there. And then we work on the process together. Truly, I've seen couples who have healed through this. And it makes me think about Jesus Christ, right? Definitely the mental health professional does their part. But if I am walking hand in hand with the Savior, gives me hope. He knows what I need, how I feel, my fears, desires, frustrations, pains, and sorrows, everything. Jesus Christ knows it all. And truly, He is the one who can heal us best. He is the one who can revive my marriage, heal it, and make it stronger. And added to that, we work on the emotional part, right, along with the spiritual side. Because the Lord will strengthen our marriages so that we don't end up facing such a difficult situation as divorce. We truly hope this podcast will be a great help to everyone listening, especially since this topic is so relevant today. But first and foremost, we place our hope in Christ. And secondly, we have many tools and resources that the church offers to support all our brothers and sisters.
Thank you,
Thank
Jeremy.
you.